Welcome to Sewing Out Loud, the official podcast of ZD Sewing Studio. Here are your hosts, ZD and Mallory.
Sewing Out Loud. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Mallory Donahue.
And I'm ZD Donahue.
And I'm interrupting ZD. She is trying to sew, and I'm trying to make her record a podcast.
Trying to make me work.
Yes, that's right. She's making one of her swim shirts. Today we're going to talk about storage and transportation of your sewing machine. And, nowadays with classes and RVs
and
retreats, yes, all that jazz.
And going to your daughter's house or a relative's house out of town or something.
And 35-pound sewing machines, and not only 35-pound sewing machines, but like 35-pound, like 2 foot wide, like 3 feet wide, sewing machines. Right. Sewing machines that'll barely fit through a door. All of that, I think, brings along challenges that people don't always realize. So let's just go through a few situations here, Mom.
Okay.
What about bringing your machine into your local sewing store to be serviced?
Okay.
How would you recommend transporting that guy? You thinking about the funny story I'm thinking about?
A funny story. You want it in your vehicle, and you do want it somehow secured so it is not going to turn over.
And, they sell sewing machine luggage.
Right.
For all sizes of sewing machine and serger. Sewing machines also do have handles on them generally.
Right.
But a trolley or a piece of luggage can be worth it if you have a big machine.
Especially if you've got an expensive machine. I mean, why are you risking it?
Yeah, if you've got a $10,000 machine and the trolley costs $200.
That's not very expensive for a $10,000 machine.
Get it. Get the trolley. It will help just when you are dragging it through the door.
Well, also,
you don't hit it.
Also, you can't, we also had somebody, remember, drop their machine in the parking lot.
Yep. Drop their machine in the parking lot. That is not covered by the gold standard.
Right. And I think they were maybe on a substance of some sort. But anyway.
Next episode will be how to transport your machine while
sober.
Under the influence.
Yeah.
So be sober and then bring your sewing machine in. But it just protects it from accidental bumps to have a trolley.
Right. It's there's straps in there that you secure it with. It's made for, and it saves you.
Right.
I mean, those machines are awkward, and they're big, and they're not easy to hold on to. So, it's not like you're a wuss because you can't carry your sewing machine. And I mean, they're worse than carrying a 40-pound dog bag food.
Dog bag food.
I like dog bag food myself.
That's fine. Yeah. No, the machines are getting bigger. Even if you don't have a really big machine, something else about a case is it can just keep all your stuff together.
Well, and you also have computer screens on your case.
Yeah.
So you have screens that if they're poked or scratched or something, they might become non-functional.
So
it's possible.
If you can, you have your machine in your trolley, or if it's naked, that's okay. The best place to put it in your car is as low as possible while still being protected. Like on the floor is really better than on a seat.
Absolutely, and up against the back of the front seat, like on the back. It would be on the rear floor, up against the back, because if you do have to stop or something, it is up against
it's just fully
right.
Now, if you do have one of those big machines in the trolley, sometimes it won't fit down in the floor.
Right,
but
you're going to have to go to the trunk or the back of your SUV.
But it's not going to fall over. It's if it's wedged in there, and that's what we don't want it to fall over.
I've wedged like a pillow between mine before, or a blanket, just to make me feel better about driving with it.
Right. Now, there is the option to buckle it in, but do be careful. We had somebody buckle their machine in too well and
didn't get it out.
They couldn't get it out of the car. But just be careful. Also, be careful with the seatbelt buckle that it doesn't like hit your screen or something like that, or scratch something. So
now that machine shouldn't truly be naked. It should have its cover on, or wrap a towel around it or something. It's just not a good idea to just throw it around.
Yeah, that's very true.
If you want it around for a while, take care of it.
And if you're bringing in the embroidery unit to be repaired or serviced or just to a class, that's another thing where those trolleys come in handy, because they will often have the option of having a bag that the embroidery unit sits in, and then that embroidery arm is protected,
right?
Which is really important, that it doesn't get knocked.
And you don't transport with the unit on the machine.
Ever. Good point, Mom.
Never, ever, ever, never, ever. And there's no exception to that, honestly.
Nope, never. Even if you have some little machine that's real small, like Sophia size, take that embroidery unit off while the machine's off.
And if you're just moving it in your house from like one table to the other, take the embroidery
unit off. You won't regret it. You might regret it if you leave it on. So when you're traveling by car, go ahead.
Well, you said bringing in for repair. The other thing is bring in the bobbin you're using. Bring in your power cord, and bring in your power pedal. And don't think that even though, you've purchased it at that dealer where you're going to get fixed, don't assume they have the parts. The other thing, too, is you want to take your accessories because you want to know your accessories work.
Right. So when you're transporting the machine in a car, make sure it's secured or it's on the floor. We don't want it falling over, and a trolley is best to keep that screen protected. But sometimes people fly with their machine.
Right.
So speaking of buying a machine, if you do plan on flying with the machine or moving the machine, if you know there's a move coming up, or you winter somewhere and summer another place, get the box when you buy the machine.
Keep the box, yes.
Yeah.
Keep that foam. Now, you can go and get some foam to go around your machine and at like a packing store or something, and they will really make sure it's packed well and all that, but it will cost you $200.
Yes, it's really expensive.
Yeah.
The foam that the machines come packed in is molded to the
honestly,
shape of the machine.
They have like a technical department that designs the packaging for your machine to be shipped in.
Now, I do get people who are like, I'm not moving, I'm not flying with it. They don't want the box. Okay. But if you do have a little attic space or something where you can keep it, it's not a bad idea, even for the smallest of machines. I had a lady who took a machine to Thailand.
Right.
And she didn't have the box, so she did buy a trolley. Now, it was a smaller machine. It was a Sophia.
Right.
It was not a gigantic, machine.
Right.
But she packed in a bunch of, like, fabric around it.
Right.
Things like that, so that's a way to do it. And she didn't check it. She carried it on.
Yes.
Now, you have that option if it's a smaller machine.
Well, I was going to say, you have to check with your airline on all of that stuff. The other thing, too, is if you really are going to travel a lot, if you're going to a lot of retreats, and you have a big, huge, humongous, top-of-the-line machine, you might not need that for the retreat. You might want to take a smaller machine. And many of our people have their travel machine. So that's common practice nowadays.
If you are traveling with the machine, it's probably a good idea. If you're traveling a long distance, like we're talking about, sort of, flying and everything, go ahead and take the needle out.
Yes.
You put the presser foot down, you take the needle out. It doesn't need to be in there and get lodged or broken or something somehow. It's just kind of another, issue.
Right.
Now, not everybody is as lucky as us and can keep their machines out to sew on all the time.
Right.
Sometimes people have to store their machines. But even we have our machines out and we have covers on them, right?
Yeah. It's for many reasons. Dust is probably the major one. The other thing is UV light.
Mm-hmm.
Your machine many of the plastics can become discolored. It won't hurt the machine, usually, if the color changes, but it may not be aesthetically pleasing either. If it's an inexpensive and not well-developed composite plastic type machine, the sun can truly degrade the plastic.
Right. It can make it brittle.
It will become brittle. Right.
And if you have a Singer featherweight, your machine probably smells bad in its case.
Yeah, they really smell bad for some reason. We've noticed that.
We've serviced all brands of machine in our store.
And so, if and here's something that's very interesting that I've learned through years and years of being a dealer. If you sew in your laundry room, I hope it's well ventilated and it's not humid, because we have had people come in whose machines have basically like been rusted, and we're like, where do you keep your machine? And they'll inevitably say, my laundry room or my basement. That machine needs to be dry. So if you're storing, think about where you're storing that machine. We've also had people come in and say, well, my dog, it's in the garage and the dog pees on it all the time. If you don't, I'm not even addressing that. But you don't, and if you're not using your machine, you really need to get it out once a year and move its mechanisms.
Move the parts around.
Yes, because that's what, it's like having a car sit, and if you don't turn on the engine, all the oil drains to the bottom and it doesn't get to the, the pistons and the movable parts and everything, or the gears, whatever, and they're not lubricated, and they'll freeze up on you.
Right. That's the only time we've ever had a problem with the baby lock serger, actually.
That's right. With somebody left in a closet for like 3 years.
Yeah, and it's, she gets the class, and we can't like move the hand wheel. Oh, it's been in my closet for 3 years, and we open the bottom up, and there's a bunch of 150 ladybugs in the bottom.
Well, and the thing is people, that's the other thing when people say, oh, but, I've hardly used this machine. Well, that's not good for a machine.
Yeah, people will say it doesn't need to be serviced.
Right.
My mother had it for 30 years. She died 8 years ago, and it hasn't been used since then. And I'm like, I mean, maybe it doesn't need to be serviced. But keeping that, using the machine, keeping it dry, keeping it away from harsh UV light, those are all things that you should do if you're storing your machine in your home. Now, if you are away from your machine for a long time, I'd recommend not getting out like some white satin to stitch on right away too, right, Mom?
That's right.
Yeah, you might want to run some test fabric through there, because there might be some stuff that needs to get moved around.
And you don't know what kind of stuff it might be.
That's right.
The other thing is that everything needs to be used to work. And like I said, I said this before, and I'm getting redundant on this. The other thing is, don't put your machine away dirty.
Yes. No, that you're not being redundant, because that's a really good point.
Because if there's lint in there, that lint will suck the oil up, off of the things that need to be oiled.
Lubricated.
Right.
Yeah.
The lubrication is being sucked into the lint. It wicks away. The other thing is we have actually had machines come in where you could tell that people have splashed coffee or soda on them, and they're there's this sugary substance or something, and you're like, what is this? And the way to clean that off is with a damp cloth, water, or spray a little Windex or something and spray it on the cloth. Never spray anything on your machine.
Right.
Never spray anything on your machine.
But that's a really good point. If you are going to be away from your machine for a while, to clean it, and put, a couple dabs of oil wherever that needs to happen before you put it away and you don't sew for a few months, or you are out of town or whatever, that is a really good point. And if you have a machine in your home that you don't use often, like maybe it's a hand-me-down or a backup or something like that, well, if it's going to be your backup when your other one needs to go in to be serviced or something, like Mom said, maybe you should try sewing a little something on it real quick.
Well, sometimes what we do is we sort of rotate machines.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take one down and put the other one up so that we're using our backup machine.
Well, I think that it's important just it seems like common sense, but sewing machines aren't something that we take to and from work every day. And so then when you do go to transport it, you're sort of like, oh gosh, she's not ready for this, or she's naked, or what do I do to protect her, and more machines aren't coming with the hard cases.
No, they're not.
They come with the dust covers and things like
and
that.
If they have a hard case, they're so heavy you can't lift them.
Right,
So.
and that's exactly why. So anyway, keep it in mind if you're going to be going to classes and taking your machine to keep it nice and
The other thing I'd like to talk about is temperature. Just like most of your machines are computers nowadays. So you cannot leave that machine in a hot car that's closed up, just like you can't leave your dog in the hot car that's closed up, or your computer or your phone. Now, you can leave it in a cold car, and that won't hurt it. The only thing is that you must let it come in and get to room temperature before you or you could wind up with some trouble.
If you've ever left your iPhone on your dashboard accidentally or something, and then it won't turn on, that's happened to my husband. That will degrade your computer parts.
The other thing is, some of us have significant others that say, "Oh, I'll move your machine for you," or "Oh, I'll bring your." If they really don't know about that machine they're likely to bring, not take that embroidery unit off, or throw that embroidery unit around and not know that it's got an arm that's movable and go. So if somebody's not familiar with the machine, I don't know it's a good idea to let them move it.
Or show them how, pack it up or whatever. That's a really good point. Well, for right now, I think I'd like to do a little bit of listener mail. So I'd like to give a shout out to Diana and Alexis and their mother-daughter team, like us. And I think they're from Delaware and Maryland.
I thought it might have been our Diana, but go ahead.
No, wrong Diana. I'm sure, actually.
Hey, Diana.
all of our Dianas. I didn't want to say last names on the air, but Diana ordered some stuff from our website for her daughter, and I actually got to talk to her on the phone, and she said that her daughter really enjoys the podcast and made her listen to it, and that now she likes it too. So that makes me happy that her daughter made her listen to it, and she likes it too. And I'm very happy that we have another mother-daughter team, who is enjoying the podcast as much as we are.
And we do get feedback occasionally that people like the different perspective, generation perspective.
Right. So I didn't like,
because I think youthfully, and Mallory doesn't.
I don't understand certain things.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, I'm saying is I'm vibrant and energetic and youthful in my thinking, and you could be the fuddy-dud sometimes.
Oh, I am. I am totally a fuddy-dud sometimes. And then I have a second piece of actual, kind of listener mail. And this is from Leslie. And she commented on the Feel Free to Compliment Me Ginger Jeans episode. And she said, the buttonhole stitch and the blanket stitch are different. And so she sent a really cool article.
Why did we say they were the same?
Well, yeah, on the Ginger Jeans episode, remember we talked about how Jane wasn't sure why the buttonhole stitch was called the buttonhole stitch, and it's similar to the blanket stitch, and Jane...
Well, it's somewhat similar, I guess.
Leslie sent a really good...
explanation.
So to clarify, I really just thought they were the same thing, which is why my ginger jeans have a blanket stitch for the buttonhole, I guess. But Leslie sent a link to heritageshop.com with a really excellent diagram and of blanket stitch, different types of blanket stitches, and then also the buttonhole stitch. And the buttonhole stitch has an extra knot in it that is not on my jeans. Because I didn't know.
Because you did your button with a blanket stitch.
I did my buttonhole with a blanket stitch. And it's fine, but I can see how this would be
better.
More durable. And so, anyway, if you ever want to correct our knowledge of hand sewing, that might be something that needs to happen every once in a while.
Well, sometimes, too, it's not clear what is right or what is wrong.
I'm sure
different things are practiced in different areas.
And that's why
I do believe she's right.
Yeah, and that's why I really like that she sent us an article. She wasn't just
she
this
just didn't
is wrong.
Say, you don't know what you're doing, you crazy people.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So thank you, Leslie. I appreciated the link to the article, and I'll be using that site as a resource, too, because it looks good. And so anyway, if you want to get in touch with us, visit us on Instagram at ZD Sewing Studio. You can go to sewingoutloud.com to see all of the podcasts in one place, or you can go to sewhere.com/shop, where we sell a lot of the things that we sell in our store, we use every day, and talk about here on the podcast as well. So thanks for listening.
So long and so happy.
Thanks for listening to Sewing Out Loud. For even more expert sewing advice, visit sewhere.com.